what happens when you need all these things affirmed? You have to have someone, a higher power, to affirm it. And so therefore, if you don't believe in God, who's that higher power? Government. And so naturally, government expands as a society gets more and more secular. Welcome back to Make Our Voice Known. If you haven't done so already, hit that like button, subscribe, share this with your friends. Like I've mentioned before, we're making the voice of the biblical believing Christian, the voice of biblical values known in the public square. We have to. We have to reject all of the woke, anti-God, anti-American sentiment that is prevalent and looking to prevail in our nation and in the world. So speaking of the world, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced today that they're looking to pass legislation in Canada that will put a freeze on all purchases of handguns in Canada.
However, in our discussions with law enforcement, advocates, and experts, it became apparent that we needed a different solution. So we decided to take a new route, something that would tackle this issue at a national level. And so today, we're moving forward. We're introducing legislation to implement a national freeze on handgun ownership. What this means is that it will no longer be possible to buy, sell, transfer, or import handguns anywhere in Canada.
And in addition to that, they want to establish a buyback program for assault weapons. So the AR-15 that were used in the Buffalo shooting as well as the Uvalde shootings last week. Now you have to understand, what you're seeing happening in Canada is kind of a precursor as to what they want to do here in America. The only difference between what's happening in Canada and what's happening here in America is our Second Amendment. See, the Second Amendment is more than just guns. The Second Amendment is for the establishment of personal sovereignty, the establishment of personal property. Because when you have the ability to bear arms, then you have the ability to protect your property. And so that's what is happening in Canada. See, Canadians are losing their personal sovereignty. And the next step would be, after this bill, after this law is passed, which in Canada, I wouldn't be surprised if it was, after it's passed, then they will put a freeze on the purchase of handguns. And they're not going to lift that freeze. It's not going to be a temporary thing, if they may say it's going to be temporary. No. This is a first step towards a totalitarian regime. And so they're going to eventually purchase all guns, buy back all guns in Canadians, disarming them, and then they're going to take their property. That is the subsequent next step. That is the step that all dictators, all communist regimes, all Marxist regimes take. That's the step. You first disarm the people, you give them something to be afraid of, so they will willingly sacrifice their freedom, their liberty for security. COVID-19, for example, or now monkeypox, or the threat of our children being shot in school. Unfortunately, those are things that the government, a tyrannical government, will use in order to persuade, coerce the citizens to give up their rights to their firearms. Now, in America, John Adams said that our Constitution was made for a moral and religious people. But our culture, our country is becoming so secular that the Constitution really no longer applies to these people because they can no longer govern themselves. Our country was created for a self-governing people. That's what morality, that's what religion, essentially Christianity, does. It puts guardrails on human beings so they will live according to scripture, according to principle, according to the fact that they want everyone to have liberty and the pursuit of happiness. But when you don't have moral or religious fiber in your being, when everything goes based upon how you're feeling, when you can feel like you're a man or you can feel like you're a woman, when you disavow genders, when you disavow sexuality, when you disavow the fact biology and saying that a male is a male and a female is a female, then anything can go. And what happens when you need all these things affirmed? You have to have someone, a higher power, to affirm it. And so therefore, if you don't believe in God, who's that higher power? Government. And so naturally, government expands as a society gets more and more secular. And that is the intention. That was the intention of the Marxists, the communists, and the socialists all along when they infiltrated the institutions to subvert them. They knew the end result would be government will grow exponentially. The progressives, they've been pushing that. They knew that government would grow exponentially to the point that people who can no longer govern themselves, no longer have self-governance, will need to rely upon big government to settle any disputes, to settle the quarrels. And what happens? People exchange their freedom, exchange their liberty for security of the big government. And that's what's happening. You see it happening in Canada, and they want the exact same thing to happen here in America. They want all of us to be victims. We are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. But for us to truly return to a democratic republic, a constitutional republic, then we must return to our biblical foundation, our biblical roots. There must be a resuscitation of the churches here in America, which in turn will lead to a revitalization of the spirit of America. That's the only way that America will survive this. Will survive this attack from within. Like Abraham Lincoln said, America can be destroyed, it's from within. And that's what's happening. They are destroying and subverting America from within. And we have to push back on that. We must fight against that because we are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. Unless you want us to become Canada, that's the choice. Because Canadians are losing their freedoms right before our eyes. And if we don't stop this trend that we're on, we're going to be on that same path as our neighbors to the north. We are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. Thank you so much for liking and your comments and subscribing to the channel. Please share this with your friends. Smash that like button. Smash the subscription bell. Share this with everybody you know. We're trying to make sure people understand that they're not victims, that they are empowered for greatness, and all this stuff that's out here that's telling them otherwise is false and will not benefit them in the end. So please, I appreciate that. Share that.